G'day YouTube, it's Dave from Back Trails Territory here once again. Coming at you this time, not from the Bush Law Survival Tracking and Bushcraft School, but I'm back in my own backyard in the top end for once. With another equipment review for you today. A bit of background noise, it's my hard-working chooks in the background there. So today's review is one that I never actually thought I'd end up doing, which is on a commercially purchased survival kit. Now, there's a hell of a lot of information out there in bushcraft and survival circles, both in books, the internet, YouTube, etc., on survival kits, what should be in them, what shouldn't be, and it always seems to provoke a lot of heated discussion on what the best kit is. I guess it's with everything in bushcraft, the best piece of kit in the world is the one that you've actually got on you when you need it in an emergency. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's no place for survival kits in bush, there absolutely is. Just in my experience, I've seen a lot of people with very, very limited bushcraft experience placing far too much emphasis on a survival kit, mainly a personally or a commercially bought one. In that I mean you've got people with not a lot of experience in the bush, very, very keen, which is good to see. They get a bit of education either by doing bushwalks or more likely these days watching a YouTube video or reading a couple of books. Go out and the first thing they get is a commercial survival kit and decide they're ready to head off with a canteen of water off into the wilds. Now, in a lot of cases it'll be fine, they're not going to come unstuck, but when they do, having reliance on a single piece of kit such as a survival kit I think is false hope. As with any kind of tool, you need to train with it and work with it and get experience in it, and if you're simply buying one of these things off the shelf, sticking it in your backpack, and 3 years later having the time you need it come up, I think you're going to be in the hurt locker. Now, I've had a couple of commercially bought ones over the years, two in particular, and in both cases none of them in their current form resemble what they were off the shelf. I think one I bought, one was given to me. Basically all that's left of the main one I do carry on the rare occasions I actually carry a kit is the steel box or the steel container. All the other parts over the years I've ratted out and replaced or upgraded because as I gained experience in the sticks, realised a lot of the components were simply substandard. There's a few exceptions out there. What I've seen, I don't own one, but Bob Cooper, who's an Australian survival instructor, makes what appears to be a really, really good kit. I've looked at one and had a play with one, and his, or a variation of them, are actually in use by the Australian Special Forces community, and there's a couple I've seen made by private companies in the US. Again, they seem to be made by ex-SF operators aimed at that market, but very good quality. The contents are obviously, as you'd expect, the best you can find, but you do pay through the eye teeth for them, and by paying $30 or $35 for a commercial kit off the shelf, I think, as I said before, is false security. But then every now and again comes something which will make you do a 180 on your thought process, and in this case it started off as a tool I was looking at called the SNAP, which is or SNAP, the Survival Needs And Preparedness tool. Now, it's made by Dave Williams, otherwise known as Norseman, within the American bushcraft and survival community. If you've watched other videos on my channel, you'll see that I've done a review on a custom knife I had made by Norseman, which was the Hog, otherwise known as the Hunters of Gunman, or originally called the Survivology. It's basically my favourite bushcraft carry knife at the moment. Just love the thing. So Dave came up with a tool called the SNAP, which basically looks like a metal card type survival tool, and I'm not sure what the story was, but basically Tops Knives, which are a pretty big knife company in the US, I've got quite a few of these and I love them, they picked up with the SNAP and modelled a survival kit around that, including the container you see in front of you here. So being a big fan of Norseman's work, I had to pick one up, so I contacted him, and there was one in the mail shortly afterwards. So let's crack it open and have a look. Now, one thing I should mention before I actually crack the container open, a nice touch I saw was, as with all Tops knives, I won't do a grand unboxing, but it comes with a certificate of authenticity with a serial number on it. One other thing that's actually been thrown in there by Norseman is a half a dozen band-aids. If you don't know if you can read that, it says it's a survival hardware, which is Norseman's site. Written under that, you're going to need this. So I know a lot of kits do come with band-aids actually inside them as a first aid component. This is one basically before you even get the kit open, he's providing you with a few band-aids. So I think that says something to the effectiveness of this tool, that if you muck up when you're using it, you are going to get cut fingers. Now the SNAP kit itself, it's a steel container. It's an Altoids tin size, so it's a bit smaller than some of the other commercial ones you will see, such as are made by BCB, that seem to be an industry standard, particularly in Europe. I've noticed a lot of the American kits seem to be that Altoids tin size, obviously because they're a lot smaller, which means you're more likely to carry them when you need them. The reverse side of that is the smaller the kit, the less equipment in it. Bear in mind, this is as it comes, and the idea of any survival kit is you customise it to suit your own needs. So I'll go through what the contents of this kit are, and then give you my thoughts on sort of upgrades you might want to do. There is a bit of extra room in it. I think Norseman would be the first one to say, don't just buy one of these and rely on that. Customise it to suit your own requirements. So as you can see, small tin with a rubber band. I think they're called a Ranger band. The durable rubber there. Okay, front of the tin there, the top logo at the top. In his former life, Norseman was a gunnery sergeant with the US Marines, serving as a sniper instructor and a survival instructor. So that's reflected on the label there. So I guess if anybody is qualified to make a tool such as this, it would be a US Marine survival instructor. So opening the tin, got a cardboard emergency contact card in the top, which won't be coming in the field with me. And the SNAP tool itself is the ochre red looking steel beast. I really apologise for the blurry focus on this, I just cannot get my camera to play the game. So for the data on the tool itself, it's made of 1095 high carbon steel. It's an eighth of an inch thick, which is 31mm for us Aussies. The weight, the entire kit is 5 ounces or 142 grams, and the SNAP blade itself comes in at 2 ounces, which is about 57 grams. See the thickness? There's a lot of really tinny survival cards on the market. This thing is very, very heavy duty, as you'd expect. Got 2 cutting edges on it. Norseman describes them as a modified chisel grind on both, so this absolute crap camera's not going to do it any justice. One edge here and one edge there, again with the tops markings and Norseman's name on it. Applications for this, the first thing I thought before it was actually available, when I saw it on Norseman's website, was scraping hides. Something I've done with knives on a number of occasions. It tends to dull them pretty quick. With a chisel grind such as this, pretty easy to sharpen it up in the bush and keep on with your tools. Got a couple of attachment points there. It can be secured to a pole or a stick to make an improvised axe. Give you a bit of extra reach if you're trying to lop branches etc. off. Nice thumb grip. And one of on Norseman's website, he actually puts a pole through this hole here and almost ends up looking like a hoe, as in the garden implement hoe, but uses that as a improvised ploughing type implement when he's doing some woodwork. So a lot of applications, probably limited only by your imagination here. That's the tool. The rest of the kit is pretty much standard survival kittish, but however it is a very, very high quality, I must admit. The compass, button compass on the lanyard, a lot better quality than some of the other ones you'll find, and yes, it does point to true north. Cotton, a lot of applications including medical or fire starting. I think it's 21 feet of fishing line, a couple of fish hooks. Now that's probably more for interior fishing. I actually live on the coast in the Northern Territory of Australia, where our inland rivers besides being inhabited by man-eating crocodiles. We get a lot of sports fish that throwing in a lightweight line often ends up with it getting snapped, so all I would do there is upgrade it to a braided line, a little bit of larger hooks and sinkers, and we'd be away. It's a 12 foot of nano cord for your cordage uses. The standard tops whistle that comes with a lot of the tops knives these days, along with a fire starter. I think it's 126 decibels. I think it's 12 feet of orange marking tape, a lot of uses there for marking trails. As a search marker, I guess, if you needed it. What the American military call a P38 can opener. We've got a similar thing in Australia. It's slightly larger. We call it a Fred, or effing ridiculous eating device, but it's the same type of setup. Also seen these turned into improvised fishing lures. Signal mirror. Ferro rod, big enough to get the job done. A couple of safety pins, quite handy in the bush. And one thing I love in this, which you just don't see in kits, is a very heavy duty sail needle. Now anytime I knock up a bushcraft kit or a first aid kit, I always throw a few sail needles in because they're invaluable. I've used them to fix footwear, fix shelters, fix backpacks, that kind of thing. And you've got improvised tool use, again use your imagination. And lastly you've got the Fresnel lens. Used for fire starting. Actually, the last time I used one of these was to pull the removing a tick from my leg, just a magnifying glass to help me get the last bit out which broke off when I didn't remove it properly. As you see there, the high quality components, but it's pretty much what you see in a lot of kits, but it's the actual snap tool which this kit is based about. I'll be doing a full review on that on one of my bushcraft expeditions soon. I'll put in a link to Norseman's webpage, survivalology, for my lisp, and he's got a multitude of photos of this thing in action. A lot better imagery than I'd be able to come up with at short notice. So there you have it. If you're into a commercially available survival kit, I highly recommend this. Price is about $50 US. I think probably $10 to $12 shipping maybe. Whether I'd carry the entire kit on me, I'm not sure. I generally just carry a fire kit and a small fishing kit when I go in the bush, but definitely the tool itself, I'll be knocking up some kind of cover for that, and that will be accompanying me. And just for the sake of it, I'll also probably just carry the kit in its entirety, just with a couple of upgrades, such as upgrading the fishing line. But I definitely like this, as I said earlier. Not usually a fan of commercially made kits, but this one really fits the bill. Good quality. And don't think you could go wrong with it. As always, happy trails and thanks for watching.